Piece in Crane Chicago Business. So that's the anti-business business magazine, pro-rent seeker rag in Chicago. I mean, let's just call things what they are, which I do. Piece in Cranes. Here's an aggressive proposition. AI has a trust problem. Chicago can help solve it. Since when is Chicago in the business of solving trust problems or any sorts of problems? But maybe there's a point here. The author of this piece argues, what AI lacks today is what financial markets, credit markets, and countless other sectors have long relied upon: independent standards, objective evaluation, and meaningful accountability at the deployment level, not at the developer level. And the comparison is made to Underwriters Laboratories and the Chicago Board of Trade. Underwriters Laboratories helping us establish independent testing standards for electrical technologies. The Board of Trade helping pioneer standardized grading and inspection systems to bring confidence to commodities markets. That's what we need for AI. To develop that argument, pleased to be joined by the author of that piece, James Malackowski, who is the chairman and founding director of AIQA Global, that is, AIQA Global, and Chase Malackowski, the global co-founder and managing director of AIQA Global. James, Chase, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
No, our pleasure, Dan. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Dan.
So Chicago can help solve an AI problem. I got the I mentioned the Underwriters Laboratory and Chicago Board of Trade comparisons, but develop that for us a little bit, if you would, either one.
Yeah, I appreciate your comment of just getting straight to it. And Chicago has demonstrated leadership over the years. And, the UL example goes all the way back to 1894, where folks were concerned about this new thing called electricity and whether it would start the barn on fire. It repeated that in 1848 with the Board of Trade, and then again with more recently Morningstar. So there is real leadership potential here, and we're seeing that in AI not only by the new legislation, which we'll talk about, but frankly the enthusiasm of the governor and the legislature that supported it.
Yeah, well, I mean, when the political power structure in this state gets enthusiastic about something, I get very concerned. So why should I be excited that Pritzker and his posse are excited?
I think one primary reason is what they are doing is a modest innovation over what California and New York have done, and it's in the spirit of full disclosure. If you look at the Illinois Act, what it really does new is require the large AI developers to publish what they're going to do for safety and then live up to it with an independent audit. And Illinois is the first to advance that audit principle, and that should give us all some comfort that there's somebody watching over this new technology.
When you say safety, though, AI safety, what does that mean?
So what the Illinois law specifically covers is how a company is going to respond to what is, quote unquote, catastrophic risk. And they're defining catastrophic risk as potentially $1 billion or more in damages caused by the AI system. What this really covers is those very large AI model providers. Think the OpenAIs, the Anthropics, the Googles, the Metas of the world. And that is a great start on how to independently verify and monitor these types of systems.
And to your point, Dan, this law doesn't impose any obligations on you, me, or the average Illinois resident. It imposes the obligations on these large companies. So from my perspective, it's all good for the citizens. Are the AI companies, are they welcoming this as a way to standardize and enhance trust, consistent with those historical examples you provided?
So yes, both Anthropic and OpenAI have been very forthcoming in saying that they welcome this. They think this is a good idea and a comfortable way to begin assuring users that these systems are well governed.
Yeah, I will add a footnote. Those are two leading companies. All of them have not joined in the same voice, So it's yet to be determined if they get on board.
But isn't this different? Like the UL, the Chicago Board of Trade examples. I mean, they're talking about sort of testing standards that are for like electrical technologies. I mean, that's the science, and the science says that this is this is safe or it's not safe, or this this contraption works as advertised or it doesn't work. There's no in between. With AI, isn't it a little bit more gooey when it comes to that sort of standard setting?
Well, it's a very perceptive question because it is more gooey. And the way it's more gooey is what this act requires is that these large models set forth their own plan of governance, and it simply tests against their plan. It's not an independent standard of quality or governance that everyone must comply with. But that said, it's really the first step in bringing some sort of guidance to this industry. And we would expect that over time, something less gooey will develop. The key question is who's going to do it? Is it going to be the state legislator, the federal government, or in our view, hopefully, it will be independent market response like UL Laboratories, like the Board of Trade.
And so when it comes to the governance standards, are we talking strictly with respect to market impact from a financial perspective, or are we talking about with respect to content moderation too?
So when we're talking about standards, we look at this from a governance, deployment, and documentation standpoint. We're not necessarily looking at moderating content or really looking into the underlying technology behind an AI model. I think the industry standard for AI governance is going to be tool agnostic, technology agnostic, model agnostic, so that every AI system can be compared on a governance framework level playing field.
Dan, what most people don't realize is this is an active conversation globally for various governments and non-government organizations, all who are just establishing the recommended framework for use of AI. So think of it this way, building the foundation that is well prepared so that when you plug an AI tool into your business, it's not going to have an unexpected consequence. It's not provisions for does it cut costs, does it improve revenue.
And from the private sector perspective, better that we self-regulate and develop this good housekeeping seal or this UL label that became a good housekeeping seal than have this patchwork of laws around the 50 states or even a one-size-fits-all federal law. Just those interventions, much better that we get to setting the best practices within our sector before the state does it effectively.
Absolutely right. That's the AIQA global vision, and it's really, I think, hard to argue against. If the private market can address this problem, the government does not need to, and that's what we're hoping that we'll find.
And this isn't like just in terms of governance standards. You think governance standards and you think, oh, what are we talking about? Like the next iteration of ESG? Are we talking about, if it's at federalized, are we talking about like a Sarbanes-Oxley, things that, were not only controversial, were detrimental in many respects, but those are the sorts of things you want to avoid, is what I'm guessing. Was what I'm hearing?
Yes, for sure. A lot of these, early governance frameworks fell into the same pitfall, which was that they weren't comparable, they weren't quantifiable, and that there was a discrepancy between execution. An analyst A could complete a company overview for their governance with their ESG score and reach one conclusion, and analyst B would reach something completely different. So that's really where that model broke down. AIQA is building a quantifiable, repeatable, auditable system to measure AI governance in an industry agnostic fashion. And at the very surface level of that are what we call the Chicago principles. Those are the motherhood and apple pie of AI governance. That is that AI auditing and AI governance should be independent. It should be measurable. It should be auditable and repeatable. It should be comparable across industries and across corporations. It should be continuously updated, and that it should be accountable.
And so then just using the Chicago Board of Trade example, but feel free to give me more detail on that. It's like, look, this is, again, it provides confidence in terms of the commodities market. And then for people that are trading on at the board, you can choose your trading strategy, but everybody is working off imperfect but reliable information.
That's exactly right. That when you're trading number 2 corn, you know exactly what that means because there's a defined set of standards that someone can objectively review, and you can take comfort in that. You don't have to worry about trading based upon, again, using Chase's example, what analyst A said versus analyst B. And that same degree of rigor needs to come to the AI marketplace, and we think that will give everyone who uses it, whether they be an individual or a business enterprise, a much better degree of confidence that they are using it safely.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you take you talk about agnosticism here? What about in terms of corporate structure? For example, Sam Altman, OpenAI, has filed paperwork with the SEC in advance of an IPO for OpenAI that wants to leave a 5% equity stake for basically the federal government. Do you take a position on the essentially cap table of these companies as it pertains to governance?
No, we do not take a position on their cap table. We believe that the framework that will prevail with regards to AI governance is one that is completely industry and business agnostic. I should be able to compare a manufacturing company from rural Illinois to a tech startup that's in Chicago. The way that they develop and utilize AI is less important in a comparable standard to how they're actually governing and documenting those systems.
So the analogy I use is there are certain safety standards for your car that should apply whether you use that once in a while to take the kids to school or every day to commute or use it for your business. And the same thing with AI. We need that basic foundation. Chase mentioned the Chicago principles, which is what we call sort of our gift to the public. Those are not proprietary to us. We think it's the motherhood and apple pie that everyone should follow. You can find them on the AIQA global website, and we just hope that that becomes a momentum for the state and others to begin to get their arms around this issue.
Okay. Very interesting. No, I mean, I think it makes sense. And I suppose the pushback you're getting, I'm just assuming if there's any pushback being given, or reticence maybe, is from people that rather engage in that rent-seeking behavior, companies that rather engage in that rent-seeking behavior to curry favor with the government and use the government as a sword or a shield, where this is just, look, this self-regulation essentially creates an even playing field, but not everybody wants to play on an even playing field.
Yeah, Dan, I know the political element is something you're very insightful on, and that's what's going to play out over the next year. AI is a global issue. So is it best regulated by the federal government? Is it regulated at a more local level as Illinois, California, New York, and others have done at the state level? Or is it best left to private enterprise? We don't know where that's going to happen, and we don't have an opinion on that. Our view is regardless of who ultimately regulates it, it has to be done in an objective and measurable way.
He is James Malackowski, Chairman and Founding Director of AIQA Global, and Chase Malackowski also joining us, AIQA Global's co-founder and managing director. James and Chase, very interesting stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Appreciate your time.
And they joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Do you see yourself traveling, working part-time, or moving somewhere warmer when you retire? Hi, I'm Nolan Webster, your local Chicagoland